Alright, so in this video I'm going to continue to look at the basic symbolizing representations, but remember, this type of stuff is not on the exam. This is meant to be a foundation for folks that aren't comfortable translating with predicate and relational logic. So I'm going to do pages 3 and 4 in this video, so I'm going to go a little bit more quickly through this one, since a lot of this, once you get the groove of how it works, should be hopefully understandable. So as before, we're going to note that we have quotations here. So we're going to treat everything as in parentheses, and we're going to do everything in the parentheses first. Santa does not exist. We have a not. Go ahead and note that we have a not outside. Santa does not exist. So Santa does exist is represented with an S. And then we're saying that the statement itself, Santa does not exist, is false. So let's do the statement first. Santa does not exist would be written as not S, and then it's false that Santa does not exist. One of the things that I've seen some folks do in their homework is try to do this, and you're not allowed to do that. You don't put a parentheses around something that's just a negated letter, so don't do that. It's understandable why, with respect to when we look at this, how we might be conceiving of it, but with respect to Lemon's system, that's not one of the things that we're allowed to do. Let's go on to number 18. We will be evicted unless we pay the rent. So we have an unless, which we know will be an or. So, and then we have we will be evicted. That's going to be an E. And then unless we pay the rent is P. So this is just going to be P, or this will be E or P. And then this one's going to be a little bit stranger. So looking at this, it says, although reindeer exists, Santa does not exist. Although is actually going to be an and statement. Why? Because this also could read as both reindeer exist and Santa does not exist. Then we also see a but. Remember, buts are also and statements. And then we have an if. So if means that everything after the if is going to be in the antecedent. And we're going to have the consequent a little bit before. So reindeer exist is going to be an R. Note that we have a not. So Santa does exist is written with an S. And all of that's going to be together. And then adults are not honest, so we have a not. And then adults are honest is written by H. And Santa does not exist. Again, we have another not. Or I think it's an S is how we're doing Santa here. Not S. So let's do this piece by piece. Let's do although reindeer exist, Santa does not exist. So this has a positive affirmative reindeer existing. And it also claims that there is no Santa. And then we have an and. And adults are not honest. So it's not the case that adults are honest if Santa does not exist. So we're going to need to go ahead and switch some sides here, because that means that if Santa does not exist, not S, then adults are not honest. What you'll notice here is that I've grouped things into sets of two. In our system that we're using, things have to be grouped into systems of two. So for example, it would not be right to put P, wedge R, wedge S. This would be wrong. It would have to be grouped like this, or grouped like this, into sets of two. Let's keep going. So Paula will pass the test just in case. So we have a just in case. She studied diligently. That means that we have something that is a sufficient condition following after this, something in the antecedent. And we can underline our parts. Paula will pass the test. P, if, because we can also translate just in case as if she studies diligently. Then we can write it down. Paula will pass the test just in case she studies diligently. So if Paula studies diligently, then she will pass the test. Let's keep going. So for this one, the picture frame is square only if it is a rectangle. So only if means that the arrow is going to just go ahead and be in this direction. The picture frame is square is an S. It is rectangular is an R. So this means if the picture frame is square, then it is a rectangle. You will succeed if you will not succeed if you lack common sense. So we have a not there, we have an if, and then C is you have common sense. So that means that lacking common sense is going to be a negation if you do not have common sense. Then we have you will succeed as an S, and then you have common sense as a C. And then notice we have to swap the sides. Why? Because the if came after the consequent. So if you lack common sense, if you do not have common sense, then it's not the case that you will succeed. If Sammy is a penguin, then Sammy is a bird. In this case, a bird that cannot fly. So cannot here also is going to be a negation of something. So Sammy is a penguin is represented by P. Sammy is a bird is B. And Sammy can fly would be F, but it's cannot fly, so it's negation F. So notice that we're also going to group those last two things together. So if Sammy is a penguin, then it follows that Sammy is both a bird and Sammy cannot fly. So either you work hard or you have fun, but not both. So the not both here is going to refer to something else that we write down, and it's just going to be referential. It's not going to be repeating everything that already happened, but we just have to understand that by not both, so we mean either you work hard or you have fun, and you don't both work hard and have fun. You'll see this in a second. So either you work hard, that's a W, or you have fun, that's an F, but not both. So that means not W and not F. Actually, that's wrong. It's not W and F at the same time. The other way I read it would have misinterpreted what's going on. And then the either or is an or statement. So in total, we would say that either you work hard or you have fun, and it's not the case that you can do both of those things at the same time. That's a more straightforward way of thinking about it. Given that Bozo has a bill, so the given that means that we have something that's going to be in the antecedent. Then implied, and then either or means we have a wedge and we don't have any negations here. So Bozo has a bill is B, Bozo's a duck is D, Bozo's a platypus is P. So given that Bozo has a bill, it follows that if Bozo is either a duck or a platypus. Going on to 6, we have one of the ones that we looked at earlier. We have a neither nor. So there's two different ways of translating this. So you can either translate it as a not and then the disjunction with inside of a wedge, or you can translate it as two independent claims and just stick the two independent claims together. I'm going to do both. So since we have a neither nor, now we can do the other parts. Penguins can fly is P. Ostriches can fly is O. So one way of doing this would be like, it's not the case that penguins can fly, and it's not the case that ostriches can fly. Or we could write, it's not the case that either penguins or ostriches, I want to make that into a Q for some reason, or ostriches can fly. Going on to 7, we have an if-then, we have a not, and then we have another if. So this is going to be a little bit odd. So the thing to note here is that everything in yellow is representative of an additional conditional statement. So we're going to want to start with the second part of this sentence before, like when we're doing the translation. But let's add stuff in. Alvin has a bill is B, Alvin is a platypus is P, and Alvin has feathers is F. So let's start with Alvin is not a platypus if he has feathers. We know that the if he has feathers part will come first. So if he has feathers, then he's not a platypus. And we know that this itself is all following from the fact that Alvin has a bill. So here we have a nested conditional statement in the conditional statement, and that is something you can see on the exam. So note that we have a neither nor again, so there's two different ways of translating this. But we also have an if. And then we have let's just say that this is another statement. So we have an and, so that's going to join two statements. Does not that's going to be a negation when. Then we have a given that. This also just means if. So Sam wins is an S. Jones wins is a J. There's a tie is a T. And then Jones does not win, so Jones wins, that's a J. Sam's wins is an S. So let's break this down and do it sentence by sentence. So neither Smith nor Jones wins if there is a tie. So if there is a tie, then, and we could do it this way, not S and not J. And then all of this is added together with, given that Smith wins, then not J. So there would have been another way to write this one. Specifically under this, you could have actually written not S or J, and then everything else would have been the same. In the next video, I'm going to continue going on through these basic translations. And then for the next video, I'm still going to do most of the worksheet. For this one, I'm going to do one more video for basic translations, and then I'm not going to translate the rest, but you'll have the answers.